wherever the fear is, wherever those uncomfortable feelings are, that's kind of where the gold lies.
I'm not sure if I've identified my shadow yet. I know it's there.
I couldn't tell you what it is. I don't think we have any idea what it is.
You'll die one day. It's a nice thought.
They're closer to the source than me and you. I'd be homeless and I'd back myself to be at peace.
That's why I felt like so miserable.
I could go off on the deep end now, man.
I like to try and come from like a place of love. I'll give you a super quick introduction, Ryan, from what I know of you anyway. I know you have a really interesting YouTube channel and you kind of focus on men's mental health and men's personal development. And then you also commentate on social issues today. I saw you call out a few YouTubers also, which I enjoyed. Yeah. Would that be an accurate description, Ryan?
That's a good little bird's eye view right there, yeah.
Yeah, a bird's eye view. I'm sure there is more to you. But yeah. I watched one of your videos recently, Ryan. Do you think there's a lot of anger in the red pill space?
Yeah.
Do you think some people are extreme? It's like extreme views. Yeah. Because
100%.
During COVID, I would have watched like a lot of red pill content. That's when I first started watching like a lot of like kind of social, political issues on YouTube, and it definitely doesn't make you like happy, like watching that stuff nonstop.
Like you said, there's a lot of anger in the red pill. Most people find the red pills on women through heartbreak, right? There's some woman that's cheated on them, or they've had rejection after rejection. So a lot of guys in there immediately just going in there with like fury, and pain. Like you said, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of truth, but there's a lot of shit in there as well, man.
Do you think some of these kind of self-help influencers, do you think they, like there's one guy I know you talked about on your channel, Hamza, do you think they can be manipulative?
So like with Hamza in general, or you mean like the majority of them?
Well, let's go with Hamza. Do you think that they feed off of like males' loneliness?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, to some degree. Do they intentionally start off that way, or do they see it as an opportunity? I don't know. It's hard to tell. With Hamza, I'd watch a bit of Hamza because even though I'm an older guy, people like always, even on my channel, they're like, "Bro, you're like 36. Why are you watching Hamza?" It's like, yeah, I've had a passion for helping younger guys out for a long time now, even with my coaching career. So I kept an eye on Hamza for a long time. I'll be completely honest. Hamza, like my spidey sense was going off with Hamza like from the start.
Okay.
I felt there was something sus there a little bit. He spoke a lot of sense, but this was a guy. I always got the impression that this guy like hadn't really. His knowledge, what he was talking about, was like from books, essentially, not like from life or experience or anything like that.
Yeah.
I looked into his background. It was like, I mentioned this on the video that went viral. The guy's barely had any life experience, really. You look at his story and stuff. So I kind of found it weird how he developed such a massive cult-like following. I mean, it really was like cult-like, huge following, 2 million followers for a 24, 25-year-old that kind of really hasn't done much.
Yeah, he's very charismatic. He's very charismatic, and he speaks very confidently.
Yes,
I think. Yeah.
He knows how to sell himself. He knows what he's doing in that regard. I'll give credit where it's due. He is very clever. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. But as time has gone on, I think he has been a little bit exposed for his lack of experience in many ways. Yeah.
Lack of experience. Okay. Yeah. Do you think you should be like, do you think it's wise to have like a healthy amount of skepticism with a lot of these young influencers? Like there's a lot of there's so many guys online like selling different courses and how to make 10K a month, and so many agency owners who and multi-million-dollar agencies and now they're coaches, etc., and leave the matrix, and there's a lot of this kind of like rhetoric online.
Yeah.
And I see so many guys who are like setting up marketing agencies now. And my friend was a teacher in Prague. He was a secondary school teacher. And he said the one name he always hears amongst like 17, 18-year-old guys is Iman Gadzi. Yeah, which is funny, like, because he's like literally like he has like such influence amongst young guys, like through like TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he man's huge, right? 5 million. Yeah, I know a bit about E-Man and stuff, and we can get onto that. But yeah, he's amongst the teenagers, the young guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's huge. He's huge, man. He's absolutely huge. That's what
Mm,
they're really looking up to. Yeah.
yeah.
But
I
in
listen
regards to it,
to,
I just want to touch on the skepticism, man.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like skepticism, everything. Anyone, even watching me, you want to watch my channel. You know, of course, think about it, question it, try and put two and two together. Do people contradict themselves? Do they, they say one thing in one video and another thing in another? And yeah, it's usually as time goes on, if it's smoke and mirrors, over time, people can't keep up with
Yeah.
their lies. They trip over their own feet.
What do you think of the phrase self improvement is masturbation?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. It's a great quote. Well, a lot of people misunderstand that quote. The notion of self improvement, again, it's like this, right? Self improvement, masturbation. What's masturbation? It's feel good. It makes you feel good, right? Do this. Go to the gym. Buy this. Buy that. Get this clothes. Make yourself feel good, right? Self masturbation. You're masturbating the ego in many ways.
Mm,
But what also is masturbation? It's not the real thing. It's a substitute for the real thing. The real thing, I believe, is a lot of self awareness, a lot of diving in, a lot of unraveling. I think that's more of the game, peeling back the layers than trying to add layers on. Self improvement is like trying to add layers on,
mm.
add more, do more, be better, get this, do that. Whereas I think the real game is peel it back, peel it away, get rid of all the dead wood, get rid of all the shit, and then you get much clearer idea of who you really are. Because as I was saying earlier as well, everything you've been told, like who are we? Who the question is, who are we? Who am I? Who are you? Most of us don't know. Most of us don't know what we are. We've been told certain stories, and we've told ourselves certain stories because of the expectations placed on us and everything else. And people don't know who we are. But when you figure that out, or you can't fully figure out who you are because we're so complex. But if you can get some type of grasp on it, then you can get a much clearer idea of where you want to go and actually who you really want to be. And since I've been doing that, since I've been going into that approach, I've kind of stepped away from the self improvement thing. I almost feel cheesy saying like self improvement, and red pill and all this. I've sort of stepped away, going down more this authentic route and what I really want to do. So
So you have to find out who you are to know where you want to go.
yeah, if
Yeah.
there's one thing I preach massively, it's like self discovery, man, self discovery, and
Mm,
100%. Because I was saying this in one of the calls inside the Man's community, and we're talking about this. One of my best responses to a calls was like, one thing I said was, I think we all hear this story of really successful people, multimillionaires. They have everything. They have the cars, the mansions, all of this stuff, and they say they're unhappy. And I think one of the things, there's a few things to it, but I think one of the things is, um, these people they haven't really reflected on who they are enough, and they sit there and they think this is not. I I thought this was going to make me happy because this is what society tells me. If I get the cars, if I get 100 million in the bank, then this is going to make me happy, and then it doesn't, because that's not really what they wanted, because they didn't know who they were. And if you find out who you are, maybe it is what you want. Maybe you still do want that stuff, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something completely different. And that's for me. If you can align your internal with your external, you can align yourself. You understand who you are. Then you can derive and create, or maybe not create. Maybe you can choose the values that you want to live by, and then you live by those values, regardless of whatever outcome comes by. That for me is the definition of success. So this is why I preach that self awareness so much.
Is solitude something that you think is important, like moments of solitude and like being on your own for a while and kind of figuring things out?
It's so important, man. Especially like I said, if you want to peel away the layers, like it's something now because I'm a father too. I'm so busy. I barely have any times of solitude anymore. And I look back on my times pre-kids or single, and I have some regret in that I didn't make the most of those times to reflect and a little bit more of self-discovery and value setting and stuff. So, and that's the times. That's you need those moments. You need those times where you can't do it. You can't do it when you're surrounded with other people when you're busy. You can't reflect. You can't ask yourself the deeper questions. You can't get to know yourself on a deeper level if you don't have those moments. It's impossible, in my opinion. So, as much as you can, not too much, right? Some people go a little bit too much. They go in monk mode for a little bit too long or a little bit too often. Um, but yeah, do it as much as you can, and and keeping it in a healthy amount, whatever that looks like for you.
It's funny you mentioned monk mode. I actually tried monk mode for the first time in January,
How'd it
and
go?
yeah, my buddy and I did it. He moved out to Spain with me, and we were living together. And I think we did it for around like 6 weeks, and like we were super dialed in, like planning out our week to like a T, and like every morning up to 7 a.m., like tracking our like meditation, stretching, reading, workout, and only Saturday was our only rest day, and like we didn't drink, and like yeah, I think after like 3 weeks, I was just like so unhappy. And
Really interesting.
yeah, because I'm quite extroverted.
Yeah.
I've realized now that I'm quite extroverted. I always thought I was like in the middle, but my friend who did it with me, he's like a lot more introverted, so kind of suited him better. But I definitely think that like I was actually watching like guys like Hamza talk about it, and he was like on his stories like just coming out of a season of monk mode and like feeling good. And I was definitely influenced by a lot of those guys, and like yeah, but I don't know. I definitely have mixed feelings about it. Like I did actually make a bit of progress with like work and the gym and stuff, but yeah, it was a funny time. Like I definitely it was after like 6 weeks. I was like I definitely felt a bit like isolated.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
Well, you had that realization, right? You're more
yeah,
extroverted than you thought, and there's value in it, right? Sometimes the value is in realizing that this isn't serving me. Sometimes that value in
exactly.
itself. Um, Chris Williamson makes a really good point about monk mode, and that it can
Mm.
be like the introvert types and stuff. They can almost see it as a virtue in a way, and it can
Mm.
justify them being on their own and not having to be social,
Yeah,
and then they get trapped in that. They get lost in it. And the next thing they know, they're just socially retarded, but ignorantly or like obnoxiously like virtuous about it, and it's really not the case. So it can be it can be a bit dangerous. It can be a slippery slope.
mm. I definitely don't regret doing it. Like sometimes I've made like silly decisions, and like went like partying for like too long. And it's like, what was I doing there? Or I've done some stupid things, and I'm like, I was an idiot. But I definitely don't regret trying it because at least now I know. And
So you wouldn't do it again. You're not going to do another round.
yeah, it's a good question. I think I'd probably do it for like 3 weeks, maybe. I'd do it for a lot shorter. And I'm actually considering doing it for like 2 weeks, maybe in the future with a friend who wants to get involved in the podcast. But I don't think I could do it longer for 3 weeks. But
Yeah, yeah. Interesting, interesting. I don't.
mm,
I think for a lot of people, it's. I don't. I think it puts in people's nervous system in a bad state. We're social creatures.
yeah,
We need to be social. So
mm,
you're completely isolating, locking yourself off to the world, without even realizing it. You're sort of in some heightened, anxious state, and
do you think adversity is important?
massively. You can't. You're not going to know who you are without those moments. You're not going to know what you're
Yeah.
made of. Where's what you're capable of, how resilient you are, where's your limits, yeah, they're so vital, and like, but what's vital is you get a good balance. Life's going to throw those curveballs at you. It's going to throw that adversity at you anyway. Life hits fucking hard, man. But during those moments of it's not always like that, right? So there are good times and so on. I'm a big advocate in throwing yourself into challenging situations. Putting yourself forward and challenging yourself and finding adversity where you can. Massive advocate for that. So yeah, massive, yeah, vital, absolutely vital.
Um, was there anything in particular, like for me, I remember I got like basically beaten up on a night out once. I got assaulted. It was in my hometown. Like everyone knew about it, and there was like loads of gossip about it, and like the police were involved. The whole town was talking about it, and like I got kicked in the face and stuff, and like dragged around the dance floor. I was like super like for like 2 months, like I was like very like anxious. I felt like super overwhelmed after it. In university, I was 100% like a people pleaser,
Mm.
and I think after that situation, like after like having all this drama and all this gossip, like I was like for some reason after it, I just stopped being a people pleaser, and like in university then I was like huge into like partying and like going to like raves and nightclubs and like just like trying to be cool, literally just yeah, trying to like please people. And definitely was like after that incident, I think, yeah, it would definitely like made me reflect and made me question things and like made me like, what am I actually doing with my life? So that was my one, like whenever I asked that question, that was for me, that was why I asked it, because I think it was an important moment.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a shitty thing that happened. But it's interesting though. It sounds like because you can go two ways. You were already a people pleaser, so what you didn't then you were just like, oh fuck people, or you just didn't trust them, or
Yeah.
how was it? What was that
Well,
for you?
I realized that like who my friends were like during this situation, because like I had like maybe big social groups, and certain people just didn't want to get involved. Like the other guy maybe has a bit of a name where I'm from, and didn't want to be associated with me because they didn't want to get involved, and there's loads of drama and there's loads of rumors. And then I realized when I was like super anxious after it, and like there's a lot of gossip about me and stuff, and like I realized when I felt terrible, like I can't entertain like these kind of draining relationships anymore, because like what's going to happen the next time something like that happens?
Yeah, there's not most people have very very few good friends, right? And eventually that gets revealed to you who they are. Yeah, usually stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's just a reality, really. I saw on your channel that you spoke about when you were younger that like you got bullied. You had like a few like pretty, to be honest, it sound pretty like horrific incidents. And it's funny when like you shared that, when you shared about those, when you shared those incidents on your channel, like really gave me like I feel a lot more context into like where you were coming from with your points. I think by you like opening up about like those issues, like it does give a lot more context into like who you are and where you're coming from.
I hope that's the case. I hope it's the case. I just
Mm.
like you were mentioning before. With influencers and stuff. Like I don't want. I want to be as honest and as clear as I can. I don't want to put no image. I don't want to be one of those guys like, oh, I've got it all together and I'm perfect and no flaws. You know, fuck that, man. That doesn't exist, man. It's if you genuinely believe that about yourself, you're a raving narcissist anyway. So
Mm.
um, yeah, I just try to be as honest as I can, man, and real. And I want people to know my story in that way. And yeah, there were some rough things that happened and stuff, but I see them as it's molded me into the person I am today. I turned it around to try to make it as much of a strength as possible.
One thing I noticed with like this podcast, like I was kind of saying, will I do it or will I won't do it? And for a long time, and then I finally grew up here, and like I was so afraid of like what certain people would say, what some haters might say, or whatever. And like I've only got like positive feedback from it so far, and like so many people, like kind of friends of friends, have like reached out to me like about certain points. They're like, "Oh, I found that really interesting," and yeah, so I've like really built up my network, and I was just all I could think. I could just couldn't visualize that any positive outcome would come from it when I was starting it. I was just like, my logic was just do this so you'll stop tormenting yourself about doing it, and then, but it's so easy to like focus on like the negatives.
Yeah, I can relate. I can relate with even starting YouTube, right? I don't know about you. I'm not like I try to be honest as I can. I put some of the spoken about some of the worst things that have happened to me. Let's say um, it's still there. The flinch of like, especially more people that I know, if they see this stuff. Only recently I've shared it on like my Instagram and let people know about the channel and stuff. And I still flinch. I still get that flinch of like, oh, what do they think or whatever it is. But it's very interesting as well. The people that actually like it and support it, they're going to let you know. From people they're never going to give you a message and be like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, this is stupid. They're not going to, laugh at you or anything like that. But they'll be quiet. And you notice the ones that you think maybe are friends that you may be close with. And if they're quiet, you know, that often speaks a lot as well. But yeah, I'm not infallible. I try to be as open and honest as possible. But again, being open and honest, like I still go there. I still get that flinch of like, oh, what do people think and stuff. But I'm used to that. I'm used to that. That's like a reflex for me now because of my past, because of the way my history, the stories I've told myself. That's a reflex, but I know it's a reflex. I know it's a faulty story, so I just sort of accept it, acknowledge it, and I do it anyway. Fuck it. Take the consequences.
Do you think you having your own YouTube is maybe an outcome of you stripping back the layers?
It's almost like a therapeutic thing. It's a lot of even a lot of self discovery just doing it as well. And sometimes I picked up the camera. Sometimes when the videos are done, I just want to get things off my chest. It's almost quite cathartic. Just get it off your chest, talk about things. Sometimes it's an unraveling of an idea in my mind. Um, and it's a creative side of me that was lost for a long time. And then you've got to think about certain topics, and then you discover these topics, and as you're researching a topic to discuss about, you have a new realization and a new realization about yourself, or new
Mm.
knowledge, and I recommend it for many people, man. I actually recommend it for many people. And then again, like you said, you put yourself out there, you expose yourself. It's like I put my ideas out there. That's for a lot of people. That's quite scary. For me, getting started, that's it's a scary thing. Well, oh Jesus, what are people going to think if they're going to call me out? They're going to think this is a stupid idea, that I'm stupid. Or you have all these things and all these things going on in your head, and sometimes it does happen. You get negative comments, but fuck, it's actually been a really great self development tool for me. Um, and I love it, man. I love it, and I think in 3 years, that the process that it's given me, the benefits it's given me, man, I see myself doing this for a long time. And if anyone sits on the fence with it, if anyone's watching, they're on the fence about starting something similar, just do it, man. Just do it, because there's more pros and cons.
Do you think being creative is essential to being human?
Good question. Yes, yes. I think that's what we're here.
Hmm.
I think that's
Yeah, I agree.
one of the main reasons we're here.
I think that's the reason why I started my podcast. Like, I was backpacking through South America last year. I went solo, and I got a sabbatical from like my day job, kind of corporate 9 to 5 IT job. And I had a lot of solitude, and like I was teaching English for a while in a small town in Colombia, and there was like limited Wi-Fi, and it's complete detachment, and it was just like a really nice time. It was a beautiful time, and like I felt like so like calm and happy, and I think it was like then I just realized like that, like my life that I'm going back to, this is no creativity. And I realized that was like the issue. That's why I was traveling, like, because I had no creative outlet. I wasn't expressing myself. And that's why I felt like so miserable.
Right, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I think like everyone can be creative.
You'll see this when you have kids. That's like it's an instinct. It's an instinct to create. Like I view kids as they're closer to the source than me and you. You know,
Source. Yeah.
they're so young. They have this urge, this instinct to learn, to develop, to push themselves, to challenge themselves for independence, and then and to create and to draw and to make things and whatever it is. It's like an instinct that we have, and unfortunately, as we get older, for some of us, it's beaten out of us, it's taught out of us, or we beat it out of ourselves, whatever it is. Um, and for me, just speaking to me personally, like it's I was big on art. Like I loved art as a kid. I really loved drawing. I loved all that, and I just stopped. I just stopped out of nowhere. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure what it was. Um, and I feel like just getting into YouTube again. Yeah, it's awoken that again, and it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing, and when we say create, people's minds go to like amazing works of art or whatever it is, a business. Man, it doesn't have to be that. It can be just. It could be anything, man. It could be anything. It's subjective, right? It could be just create some fucking ideas and put them on the internet. That's it.
You said your kids are closer to like the source. There's a book I read called The Artist's Way, and it's all about creativity and why it's so important. It's a spiritual book. It talks about like ideas being like there's like a higher purpose almost, and like you can tap into that, and that's where you get your creativity from. And it's not actually your idea. It's like the universe's idea. It's like kind of gets into energy and stuff. But
Yeah.
what did you mean when you said your kids are closer to the source? Were you getting at spirituality there, or
Yeah.
was it just a word?
Oh, I could go off. I could go off on the deep end now, man. I could go off on the deep end and start talking some. Well, it could sound very wacky to some, but
Yeah.
I'll try
Some
getting.
people
Yeah, I consider
some people
myself
would
like
describe me as wacky, so don't worry.
it
Don't
is.
worry. No judgment here.
There we go. Likewise, man. We're likewise. Man, I'm a very spiritual guy. I consider myself a very spiritual person, and I used to consider my spirituality quite practical, just like it's just in terms of improving and understanding myself. I would say over the last 12 months, my belief in a God, in a creator, and in things about the universe that we don't understand has been solidified and confirmed to me. And when I say that my kids are closer to the source, that's where they come from, man. They come from the source that creates put you and me here and all of us here. And when you're young and you're uncorrupted by humanity and consciousness and doubt and all of this, so that's why they're a little bit closer. And I think part of the journey is as you get older, you come out. Some of us will come out the other end of it and realize, oh, I've got to get back to that source again. I've got to get back there. I've got to get back to a little bit more of that childlike state. So yeah, that's what I'm alluding to.
We have art so we don't die of reality.
Nietzsche, my favorite,
Yeah.
my favorite
Mm.
philosopher. Yeah, yeah, that's true, man. That's
That
true.
would you describe yourself as religious or just spiritual or
Yeah, no, not religious. I believe in God. I do believe in God,
yeah.
but I not in a not in a religious. I don't follow religion. It seems slightly silly to me in that regard. But
Mm.
as a creator of the universe, I couldn't tell you what it is. I don't think we have any idea what it is. But yeah, that's it. Fuck, I even saw a name for this. What we're called, like people who believe in God but not in religion. I can't remember the name. I actually saw this the other day, but yeah, that's how I'd sum it up.
It's funny when you think like what you're actually doing, you know. Like sometimes I think about my life, my existence, and what I'm doing it and why I'm doing it and what I think, and it's like it kind of leans into like stoicism that like you'll die one day. It's kind of like a nice thought. I think about how irrelevant like my existence is in many ways, and like, it really kind of helps me to say like whatever anxiety I have about like maybe doing a podcast with you, like, will this go well or not? It's like you have a lot less control over life than you think. It's like being the observer rather than the person trying to control. Do you ever get anxiety, or do you ever struggle with anxiety, or
Yeah, man, massively. So maybe you probably noticed this on my channel. Like I have social anxiety. I've had social anxiety probably like my whole adult life.
Mhm.
Peaks and troughs, times where it's got like quite bad, unbearable, times that are better. As I've gotten older, it's gotten better. Um, so yeah, I get anxious. I get anxious. I'll be honest. Even in this call, I get a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous. Oh, I hope it goes well. The thoughts come up and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, yeah, anxiety is there for me, but it's getting better.
I find social media makes me like very anxious. I find it very hard to like limit my social media time. I always get drawn into like just looking at people's stories and stuff. And I think it's very bad for my energy. I don't know if you're like into like vibrations. I like to try and come from like a place of love. They say that's like the highest vibration.
Yeah,
And like, and I find that when I go on social media, I just observe myself negative emotions. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. Fuck, social media. Social media is like, in my opinion, it's a net negative on
net negative,
yeah,
definitely.
it's a net negatives on culture, humanity. Um, but it's not going anywhere, unfortunately. So we have to try to figure out. We have to be conscious again, like self awareness and conscious of how we use it. It's very difficult, man. These they're some of the smartest people in the world. They're sat in rooms thinking about ways to keep us addicted to these apps, to keep us in these apps as long as possible. And unfortunately, the tricks that they use are they're not there to make you happy. Okay, dopamine spikes and everything else, but there's a lot of it, yeah, it makes going to make you feel very shitty. And of course, when you look through social media, what do you see? It's mostly everyone, it's their highlight reels, right? Everyone doing really well and doing better than you, and then there's that natural comparison that we all have. It's that instinct that kicks in, and you see some guy who's 21 years of age on a yacht driving a Lambo, and you feel shit about yourself. Like, what the hell?
I think it makes people like lonely. And I think there's studies that the more I listened to a podcast with Mark Manson. He wrote the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And the more like lonely you feel, the more prone you are to addiction. And basically, social media makes you lonely, and then it's addictive anyway. And then it's just like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, yeah, man,
Yeah.
100%, 100%, 100%. And the sad thing is as well, it's like, man, I see it. It's, people are sat there at a table with someone else, and they're not talking to that person, and they're texting someone else that is not there. But if they were sat with the person they were texting, they would be texting the person they're sat with.
Mm.
That makes sense. It's like
Yeah, completely.
what the fuck are people doing, man? Like no one's just there face to face connecting in real life anymore. It's so and again it just fuels this feeling of like loneliness in the end. So sad
Mm.
to see. So sad to see. And of course, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. I've been guilty of it. I'm on my phone. My wife's called me out recently. I'm on my phone too much in front of the kids. Fuck, it's hard, man. It's hard. These things get you, especially, you're doing this podcast now. You've got to spend more time and looking up videos and research and guests. It's a hard balance to strike. It is a very hard balance to strike.
Are you optimistic about your life?
My life.
Yeah, are you like optimistic about the next 10 years? Because often I find like that I just focus on the negatives. And things are rarely as bad as I think they will be. And like sometimes like my mood would fluctuate as whatever, if something didn't meet my expectations or if I was worried about something. I just like tell myself like sometimes I forget that I will be happy again and things will get better. I think it's easy not to focus on positives, even though it sounds cliche, but I was wondering like would you consider yourself optimistic or
Yeah, I would say generally, yeah, I'm generally optimistic. Um, you know, got a body of research to back that up. The last 15 years or so has put me in a good place. I think why not? Why not kick on and everything else? But um, also, I don't fear so much it not going to plan.
yeah.
I guess that's the stoic in me, the stoic approach. Like I don't mind. For me personally, I could it all go to shit. I know I'm going to be fine. The only thing is now, I have kids, I have people, relying on me. So that makes it more complex, more difficult. But yeah, I'm pretty optimistic, pretty confident, and excited for where it goes as well. Yeah,
If it all goes to shit, you'll be fine.
yeah, man. Don't care.
Are
You can
you
put me.
yeah.
I'll be homeless. I'll be homeless, and I'll be sleeping on the streets. Like maybe easy to say, but I'd back myself to be at peace.
Why is that, do you think, Ryan? Do you think you've why do you think you have that mindset? I'm curious because I don't know if I'm not sure if I'd back myself there. Although a lot of my friends would say I'm quite relaxed
Mm.
in ways, so maybe I would. But like, I think it's a great place to be if you're not afraid of failing. Because I think, like, even my lesson from this podcast, like, I was so afraid of failure, and then I just started, and then I realized like that was holding me back all this time when I should have just tried it.
I think for me, I'm not fair. I'm not scared because I mean I've failed so many times. I've failed at so many things. That's number one. Like very rarely have I achieved a goal in a sense. Like I set out to do something and I achieved it. Many failures ended up being fine. Also, like I spent 2 years like sleeping on a flea ridden mattress in a shitty pub in North London in Tottenham where police cars are driving past every 5 minutes and you don't want to look people in the eye in case they might rob you or stab you or whatever. Like real shithole, real down in the dump scenario. And I put myself, like I said, I willingly put myself into some very challenging and scenarios and tested my resolve and mental resolve. And I back myself with that stuff. That's why I back myself, almost like a rock bottom thing. Like I wasn't quite a rock bottom, right? I didn't go all the way and wasn't there, but not too far off, I guess. So it doesn't phase me in that regard.
So you wouldn't describe yourself as materialistic?
No, no, I'm not. I'm
No.
not. I've said this on YouTube. Like I do YouTube. Yeah, I want to make money on YouTube, but I don't. I have zero motivation for a fancy car or a watch. Like that doesn't motivate. Just freedom and security. That's it. If those things come about one day, who knows? But not that. No, not at all. Ask my wife, bro. Ask my wife. I got like that. I've been wearing the same clothes for like the last 10 years, or same T-shirts. My car is a mess. I just don't care, man. I don't care for that stuff.
I definitely was materialistic. So, but then like after I came back from backpacking, I really questioned like why did I want a new watch?
Mm.
Like why did I want to spend like 400 or 500 quid on a watch?
Yeah.
Um, because I realized like it's like filling a void, and like even now like my dad loves cars and like he's like super interested in cars. Like he'd like take apart the engine and fix it and stuff. He's an engineer. I wouldn't have a clue. And he's always telling me like, oh, like what car are you going to get when you come home, or like, and I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
He just can't understand that I'm not interested.
Yeah, it's funny, man. People that are materialistic can't quite wrap their heads around it, but it's not. I don't know about you, but it's not like I reject it. It's not like I would reject
Yeah.
nice watch or I. It's the Buddhist principle, right? A lot of people think from the outside like Buddhism is like rejecting that stuff, and it's not. It's just not attaching yourself to that stuff. You know, you can have a nice
Losing
watch.
yourself.
Yeah, it's fine to wear a watch. Like I would be fine to have a Rolex watch if I could afford it, and there's no, and there's no problems financially if I was going to buy it. And I was like, I like the watch because it, feels good, looks good, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't attach myself to it, my value to it. Whereas a lot of
Yeah.
people that are materialistic, that's what they put their value on, right? And they attach themselves to it. That's where the problem comes.
Yeah. There's an author called Eckhart Tolle. He wrote the book called The Power of Now. I watched the video with him and he talks about like materialism. And he's like, if you lose yourself in an object, the way he phrased it, he's like, if you lose yourself. And then I thought, that's me. When I saw a nice watch, it wasn't just I was buying a nice watch, I was visualizing my identity in the watch.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's just your ego. Like, that's just like greed and fear. Ultimately, there'll be no positive outcome from it. And that's what I
No.
believe.
Yeah, because like, and Echo talks about this because what if that's the mindset? Then it's trying to scratch an itch. That's it's ultimately that stuff's never going to scratch. So what's the cause of the itch? That's the only way to solve it.
What is the cause, do you think? Why do you think I want to watch?
I don't know, man. I don't know enough
You don't
about his
know.
story. I don't know enough about his story,
Fair
but
enough.
could go could go Freudian. It's probably something in the childhood. Who knows? There's always it
The
always starts from
childhood.
the childhood. There's always something there, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know enough about his story, man. Plus, I'm not a psychologist really, so
Fair. Fair enough. I was just curious. I was just curious. Did you always find it easy to be authentic?
no, no, like
No.
only the last couple of years, man. YouTube's actually helped me in that regard, but no, man. Like I told you, like if you're socially anxious, the idea of authenticity is like terrifying to you, right? So um, a lot of the problem with people with social anxiety is it's because they want to fit in, and is derived from a story you tell yourself that you're not enough, you're not funny enough, good looking enough. Or there's a problem with me, so fundamentally there's a problem with me, so I have to change. I have to mold myself to be. I often become people pleasers, being a very big people pleaser and everything else. But yeah, I had a big problem with that, but it's gotten a lot better. And being more of an asshole, so integrating the shadow. He
Hmm.
talks about that Cole Young stuff. That's been a big help as well.
Incorporating the shadow is something that I find very interesting, but I'm not sure if I've identified my shadow yet. And I know it's there, but there's like shadow work you can do,
Yeah,
and you have to like identify your shadow. Like, how do you know how to do that? Or,
my wife gave me a good tool. She said there was a good visualization exercise because my wife's a clinical psychologist, and she actually kicked off this whole self development. She said, like, imagine we're in a room, it's a black room, nothing else, and it's you in there and with your shadow. It's you and your shadow, nothing else. What does the shadow look like? How tall is it? What's its complexion? Is it tall? Is it small? Is it strong? Is it skinny? What's his voice like? How's it speak? What's its mannerisms? Try and picture it. So like the first things that come into your mind, the first images that you're going to get, that's essentially going to be your shadow. So that was one important thing, and mine was like this, like Gollum type thing, like this little Gollum. He was like unfed, skinny, pathetic.
How do you like? So then you incorporate your shadow, like so you find out like this kind of like deep subconscious or this kind of unconscious side to you that is kind of somewhat like malicious, or I don't know how you describe it, but
Yeah.
and then you incorporate that more so into your like conscious mind. And
So the
what
thing
is the desired outcome then?
what I started with corporate strategy. You know where I first started, because I was such a people pleaser. I found conflict very, very difficult. The first thing I started with was online, like Facebook. Everyone at the time, was still all of my friends were using Facebook, so writing like controversial statuses with Facebook. So just I started going into like I was like right of center, and this was at a time where it was not popular to go against sort of mainstream beliefs and like left leaning politics, like calling out feminism and all this. Like no one was doing it, and I was starting online. That was like my first dipping my toes in the water of like conflict and being a bit of a dick and talking back to people. Now that's very easy to do online, right? But it was the first steps, and then gradually I would start doing this in conversations with people, calling out opinions. And I'd initially do it in a social setting where I could have a few glasses of wine, and then it became two glasses, and then one glass, and I could do it sober, and gradually, and then you start having these conversations with your boss one day, and then with your co-workers, and you do it in a respectful way. And again, my wife led me down the path of looking into oh god, assertiveness. So basically, essentially, how to set boundaries, how to be firm, but in a respectful way. So you don't have to just be an absolute asshole and whatnot. But all these steps gradually have helped. And I still struggle, man. I still struggle. So conflict is challenging for me. But man, wherever the fear is, wherever those uncomfortable feelings are, that's kind of where the gold lies. So you've got to go for it, man.
What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Stop putting so much attention on pointless pussy. I wasted
I
too
like
much
it.
time, destroyed my rubbish tennis career, but I destroyed what career I had in tennis. Wasted too much time, too much mental energy, too much money on pointless pussy. Yeah.
Thanks. I love it, Ryan. I love the honesty, and it was niche. It wasn't generic. Some answers are generic, so I like that. Yeah, that's actionable.
Yeah. Not well,
Yeah.
not so easy when you're an 18-year-old, right? Not so easy, but
Yeah.
I wish I fucking did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure chatting to you today, Ryan.
Man, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, I really learned a lot from talking to you, and yeah, I wish you all the best with your channel, and I'm very excited to see how far you go. I know I'll continue to watch you.
I appreciate it, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Let's do a round two further down the line.
Yeah,
That was cool, man.
100%.
And then
Look
wish you
forward
the
to that,
best of
Ryan.
luck as well. Hope it
Yeah.
goes, buddy.